Hello, Revere, and welcome to another great show, the Revere Veterans and Community. Today I have a City Councillor, Steve Reardon, who's been on the City Council 6 years, and he represents Ward 4. Steve, welcome to the Revere Veterans and Community Show.
Morris, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. I know it's been a while. We've been trying to get together on this.
I know that.
Really happy that we were able to get together
You
today.
have beautiful black hair when we tried to get together. I had a full head.
That's been a long time since I had beautiful black hair, Morris.
Okay. I want to start out with a bunch of questions for you, if I may.
Sure.
First of all, Steve, tell us a little about your background.
Well, I was brought up here in Revere. I've lived there virtually all of my life except when I was in college. I went to University of Massachusetts.
Oh, good.
I actually live on Vane Street now, 347 Vane Street, with my wife Darylyn, and we have a little puppy dog named Mona. My wife works for the Hilton and part-time at Suffolk Downs. I have a younger daughter from my previous marriage. My wife passed away. My first wife passed away. My daughter Ellen, though, is a teacher in Medford. She's a graduate of summa cum laude graduate of URI, and I'm very, very proud of her. I graduated from Boston College High School in 1970. I was at Immaculate before that for 8 grades, Immaculate here in Revere. I went to UMass and graduated in 1974 from UMass. And after that, I started in the family business, which, as you know, and most people know, was Reardon's Restaurant on the corner of Broad and Revere.
Oh, yeah.
It's now down, but it's being redeveloped now for 55 and over housing, and I'm very happy about that. I went to law school in 1991. I decided to change careers. It was fun operating the restaurant when all my younger friends were able to come down and and hang around with me. But as I got older and started having children, the fun kind of went out of it. And I was looking for a new career anyway, a different career change. So when I got out of law school, I started work at the Boncory Law Office in East Boston. My friend Phil Boncory was the owner of that firm, and I opened my own firm in 2003. And I've been at it here in Revere since that time.
Wow, 12 years.
Yeah, a long time.
Right. Now, Steve, I don't know if I should ask you this, but I'm going to anyway. What type of law do you practice? That's okay, but tell us some of your odd cases that you had, if you can.
Well, I consider myself more as kind of a country lawyer. I do a little bit of everything. Mostly what I do these days is criminal practice in court, mostly in the courts in this area, but mostly up in Essex County and Salem and Lynn. I've had a lot of odd cases over the years. Most recently, we deal with a lot of people who are new to this country and don't understand the language. And I had one fellow who was a Peruvian fellow came here, was very well educated, but he was very lonely when he got here. He was a single guy living with his relatives. And he was out in the streets of Beverly one day, and he see this beautiful girl that he was attracted to walking by. And so he stopped her and started to talk to her. And she got a little bit nervous because she couldn't understand what he was saying. So she runs into the Dunkin' Donuts, and he walks by. Now she's getting more and more nervous. So the fella sees her, and he could see that she was reticent, that she seemed to be scared of him, and he just wanted to apologize to her. Of course, he didn't have the words because he didn't speak fluent English. And anyway, he followed her into her apartment building, just the outside of it, and he wanted to just say, hey, I'm sorry, or whatever, words to calm her down. And she got even more scared, and she called the police. And so the police come down, and they charge him with accosting a person of the opposite sex, which is a serious crime if it's committed with certain intentions. But right after that, I found out that the Supreme Judicial Court said that that in order for that charge to hold up, the person has to have used sexual language, so made some kind of
with whistling, like some construction workers
whistling
do?
probably wouldn't do it, but it had to be some sort of a sexual content. In any case, obviously, my client didn't use those words, and everybody admitted it, everybody knew, so we got that case dismissed. But the fellow was very happy, but unfortunately, his experience here wanted to make him go back to Peru. I'm hoping he stuck around because he was a pretty good guy, and he knew all he had to do was learn the language. He would have been all set. That's
good. Can I ask you a question about, I'm with the senior center, as you know. What constitutes senior abuse, and how old is like some people say a senior is 60, some 55, some 50? What really?
Well, anybody 60 or older, as far as
The law goes?
The law goes as far as assault and battery.
Physical?
Is physical assault and battery is someone who does that can be charged with an enhanced assault and battery that is felony and is more serious than an assault and battery under somebody. Yes. So I represent a fellow who was a victim of assault and battery, a felonious assault and battery, because he was over 60. That's done because obviously people get to a certain age, they become more vulnerable. It's not easy for them to defend themselves any longer in that situation. So the law is designed to protect those people with an enhanced penalty, so people understand that if you are dealing with an elderly person, you got to be like everybody else. Everybody no one should resort to violence to make a point. But it's particularly bad when someone can't defend themselves, especially elderly people or handicapped people.
I was going to ask you, is that a federal crime or just a local city or state crime?
Well, most of the crimes that we deal with in Massachusetts, having to do with assaultive behavior, et cetera, are part of our Commonwealth's lexicon of laws. Federal laws generally deal with larger issues.
What would be a federal crime against the senior, roughly?
Against the senior?
Yeah.
Geez, I couldn't tell you what it would be against the senior.
Like murder, would that be a federal crime?
Well, murder is not a federal crime, except under certain very prescribed circumstances. Murder is dealt with typically, unless there's a civil rights violation involved, that violates the constitutionally protected civil rights of an individual.
If I don't like someone because of a color or a nationality or race, and
exactly, if it was motivated by a precluded reason, such as bias or some of the protected statuses of people, such as color and religion, yes, it can be charged federally.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're giving me a good lesson. Yes, Steve. Okay. Now, I said you've served on the city council, but I'm going to let you explain that.
Well, I've been on the city council. I was first elected in 2009. I started my term in 2010, and I've been there since. As everybody knows, this is an election year. I'm hoping to serve longer. I really enjoy being the Ward 4 city councilor. People have suggested I should run for some other office, but I'm very, very happy serving the people of Ward 4, and I think I've done a pretty good job. I've also served on the zoning subcommittee since I've been elected, and that's been very rewarding for me, and I've served on other subcommittees. It's been very rewarding for me to serve people in our community since I've been elected, and I'm very happy to do it.
Right. Now, what were some of your duties as chairman of the zoning board committee, if I may ask that question?
Sure. A lot of people don't understand how things get before the zoning subcommittee or even before the city council by way of zoning issues. But typically someone needs to have a change in zoning of some sort, whether it's a whole zone, a whole city zoned area, or just a particular parcel. And typically when they do that, they either have to come forward with a petition to change the zoning law, or for what's called a special permit. We have authority, we're the granting authority for special permits. When that happens, there's a procedure. The procedure is that people come to the city council for a public hearing. And at the public hearing, generally speaking, we hear from both people who are in favor of it, or if there's anybody not in favor of it. But I find at the public hearing that more questions come up than are actually answered. So the matter gets referred to the zoning subcommittee, at which point we delve into it a little bit more specifically. We have an opportunity to ask the proponents to come answer questions that might have come up at the public hearing, and then we review it for its acceptability.
Can I ask you a hypothetical question?
Certainly.
Let's say I live in a residential neighborhood. And I want to open up a little business there, like with the computer. And of course, there's going to be a little traffic there. Do I need permission from the zoning committee to let them know that I'm doing that, or I can just do it? Just do it.
That would depend on the zoning of your residence. There's several different types of residential zoning in the city. And if you're residentially business, zoned, you may have the right to do that. I would recommend that you go to the planning department and talk to the people at the planning department to make sure that you can do that before you invest in opening a business. That would always be wise. And I would also suggest that you go to the building inspector and discuss the matter with him. Generally speaking, what happens is people who want to open a business go to what's called site plan review. We have a special committee which involves the building inspector, the city engineer, the superintendent of public works, as well as the planning department. So you can come in and say, this is what I want to do, what do you think? And that gives them a better idea of where they go and what they need to do as far as change zoning. And the site plan review will actually give them a letter telling them what they need to do next. So that's a pretty good process, I think.
Here's a question too. Do you always need blueprints if you're going to do the renovations, let's say to your house, or something minor or major? Do you always have to have blueprints?
In my, well, it depends on the renovation, first of all. First of all, if you're doing any major kind of renovation, structural renovation,
right,
you have to get a building permit first and foremost.
And a structural engineer as well?
You're not necessarily a structural engineer. You may need an architect.
Right.
You may be someone to draw up a blueprint. You may need those things depending on the complexity of the project that you have. But simply replacing, for instance, a stair tread or something like that, that's not something that generally requires a building permit.
Oh. That you can do yourself, like the homeowner?
Replacing a stair tread or a...
but replacing the stairs, you would need a building permit?
Replacing the entire stairs, my guess would be the city building inspector would require a permit. I can't be specific about that because obviously every project is different.
No, that's good to know. So if people are going to do that, they should check with the building inspector first.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, I'd like to ask you this question. Being on the council for 6 years, what are your goals?
Well, when I first came to the city council, I wanted to serve the constituents. And I think as far as a ward council is concerned, and there's 6 of us, that our first thing that we need to do and make sure we do is answer our constituents' questions and try to be an intermediary between them and city government, and the various other utilities, for instance, that serve the city. And I try to make sure I return phone calls as soon as I get them. I do what I can to resolve the issue. If I can't resolve the issue myself, I pass it on to somebody else. And I try very hard to follow up on the issues. And I find that very rewarding. But the second thing that a city council, ward council has to do is I have to protect the ward. I have to make sure that the scarce resources that are available in the city through our tax in our budget every single year, that the ward gets their fair share of that. And I think I've done a pretty good job of that. I probably don't have to mention to most people the Hill School and Harry Delarusso Stadium, but there's also other things that I do to make sure that Ward 4 is taken care of from the general funds of the city. And the last thing I think is important is that a ward councilor has to represent the residents in the larger affairs of the city, such issues as zoning, such issues as the budget. Where is the budget going? When are we going to build new schools? Where are we going to build them? How are we going to do the road resurfacing, et cetera? So those are the 3 major things that a ward councilor does.
Without mentioning any names, being a Ward 4 councilor, what are some of the funny questions or oddball questions you might get?
Oh, we get all sorts of questions. I mean, people ask things that we have no control over. They ask about business. Does that guy down on Broadway sell this particular thing and stuff like that? And if I go into the place, I'll answer the question. But if I've never been there, I'll say, well, geez, let me find this. I've done crazy things. People will say to me stuff like that I don't have any business answering probably, but I'll say, hold on, I'll get you the telephone number, and I get the telephone number, and so they can ask them. But people do that. And
what is the latest call you ever got? You ever got one in the morning?
Only for emergencies and very rarely. Most people know that, I'm the city councilor. I'm not the guy with the wrench. So the first, you could certainly call me, but I'm only going to call the guy with the wrench. So most people know to go to the guy with the wrench first because it gets someone out there quicker if there's a leak or something like that.
So if it's a real emergency, they should call 911 anyway.
If it's an emergency such as fire or crime or something like that, absolutely. And I want to tell everybody that a couple of real kind of hints here. Make sure you're calm when you call, and make sure you give the most important information, which is where you are, and be able to describe it. I know that we talked to inspectional services at the city council meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the necessity of people putting this house number on the back of their house as well as the front. Because when your neighbor calls up, or your next door neighbor or behind sees something and they don't know, your next door neighbor would know the address, but the person on the other street, for instance, I live on Vane Street, Arnold Street's on the other side, I need to know the house number of the guy right behind me on Arnold Street, because if there's a problem with his house, I got to be able to say it's number such and such on Arnold Street. And so it's important to put a little number, hopefully something that will reflect reflective material of the house number on the back of your house too.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
It is a good idea.
Okay.
It's not my idea. It's a good idea though.
It's a good idea. It's an excellent idea, really, when you think of it.
It really is.
Okay, there has been a lot of talk about economic development in the city. What is your take on this issue, if I may ask?
Well, you know, a lot of people talk about economic development, but I think it's important to understand that economic development means business and retail development. And we need to continue to assist our existing businesses, both improving their current facilities, as well as encouraging them to grow. And we also have to encourage new business growth in this city. And there is a difference between business growth and retail growth. As far as I'm concerned, economic development means business growth. And it's for several very good reasons. The most important, which is that commercial property in our city is taxed at twice the rate of residential property. Right now, our residential tax rate per $1,000 is $29.74. I'm sorry, our commercial is $29.74. Our residential is only $14.80. So you can see that commercial property, especially that it doesn't, they don't have children going to school, they don't put extra tax on our public safety issues because they generally have their own security, especially if they put a new building in, they're usually very updated for fireproofness, etc. This is the kind of business and economic development that I see as economic development as opposed to residential development.
Right. Now, I've asked a lot of people this question, and I've gotten different answers. I hope someone can tell me the correct one. How much of the tax rate of the city, tax money, actually goes for education to the schools? So one person mentioned 40, one mentioned 50%.
It's approximately 50%.
Oh, it is.
But we don't have any control over that. Since education reform a number of years back, the interesting part is this. We can control our own education spending if we want to. However, by not complying with ed reform, we eliminate our ability to get funds from the state, which in Revere comprises approximately half of our education costs. So while we might spend 75 or 80 million for education annually, much that is enhanced by the state.
And how much do they give toward the education?
Well, it depends. Every city and town has a different formula depending on the makeup of the city and town. And it goes from year to year as far as I know, but it can vary obviously, and obviously the state's budget determines a lot of what we get both in what we call cherry sheet funds as well as our education funds.
Very good. Now, you mentioned something about real estate development. Could you expand on that a little bit more for us?
Well, we have, I think, an opportunity to develop real estate in this city, but I think what we need to do is be concerned about our zoning issues. We have limited commercially zoned property, and we cannot give that up to residential zoning, in my opinion. Because of the things that I mentioned to you before, the differential in the tax rate, and the fact that commercially zoned properties generally don't use up the resources that we have available in the city. So I have to say that we have commercially zoned property that is ready and ripe for development, one of which is Wonderland, the other of which is going to be, I presume, the Suffolk Downs Stable area. And fortunately, myself and my colleagues insisted when we rezoned that property that it would be zoned so that no residential building could be built there except with a special permit, giving us the authority to say no for further residential growth. I fully expect that I will be in favor of that limitation, and hopefully someday we'll we'll be looking at a station landing type of project over there, but where we have the commercial and retail area, and that the residential area stays in East Boston.
Question for you. What is actually going on with Suffolk Downs? Something new that's come up? Because I know Mayor Rizzo was going after, how can I say that? You could probably say it better than I can.
Well, when the casino, when we lost the casino, and that's still under litigation, so who knows where that's going to go
that could
in
change.
reality.
It could change?
I'm not particularly familiar with the litigation,
Oh,
other
but
than I know that there is litigation.
Oh, there is?
And I don't know. I mean, at this point, the Everett Casino is, as far as I'm concerned, my understanding of the casino legislation was that they had to have a property that was ready to be built on, and clearly that isn't. To the extent that that somehow prevents the Wynn people from going forward, I don't know. To the extent that the litigation will be successful, I don't know. But I think what the odds are that we'll have to look at Suffolk Downs as something that is developed for something other than racetrack or gaming purposes.
How about a nice big mall?
Well,
There's a whole bunch of businesses right
not
there.
on our, as far as I'm concerned, we don't need a nice big mall on the Suffolk Downs property.
Okay.
It's already too congested in that area. It is already too much traffic. If a retail area, an upscale retail area, were part of a larger plan, again, with the retail portion of it being near Beachmont Station, I think we would have to look at that, certainly, depending on the details. But the details are very, very important. But I'm very happy that we zoned it such that we can control what is built on that and on that area. I expect. I mean, that's a big spot.
Oh yeah.
But most of it's in East Boston. So whatever Boston does, they're going to do. We can't stop them to a large degree. I'd like to see, for instance, some form of an educational campus over there would be great. And again, we could use our side to service that by way of offering businesses and retail that would service that community.
That's pretty good. Thank you, Councillor Reardon. Now, we got about, time is getting down on this, but how do you see the future of Revere?
I think Revere has a very bright future. I mean, we've got updated over the last 12 years, we've updated our educational facilities, number one. That's primarily important because now we have an opportunity to teach our children. Hopefully they will stay here and contribute back as they get older, but they have a great foundation to go forward. We're uplifting the community in that way, and I'm very, very happy about that. Also, we've discussed recently a new plan to impose a 5-year revolving capital improvement plan. I think this is a very key thing for our community because it will give us the opportunity to plan how to use our resources rather than just spend them as we go along. So instead of wasting money on repairs, for instance, we can plan obsolescence. We know when a street needs to be repaved because we plan to do it in advance rather than come and fill potholes all the time, which generally don't last very long. That's just in one example. So I think a capital improvement plan is a necessity in any modern city, and it will eliminate a lot of wasteful spending. And also, we're looking forward to the completion of our updated water and sewer system, which will be a great boon to the city, giving reliable service. You can ask the Department of Public Works down there how often they have to send crews out to do repair work. It's constant, and that's costing us millions of dollars annually on an emergency basis rather than just fix the situation and maintain it, which would be much less expensive. And once again, I'm looking forward to the future development of the Wonderland site and the Suffolk Downs site, and I think we have a really bright future here.
I agree with you on that. Now, my final question to you, if I may, Councillor Reardon. What accomplishment during your term of your office that you've been in for 6 years are you really most proud of?
Well, as I said to you, the three major things that I think a city councilor needs to do, which is constituent service. So I have to say that I pride myself in being able to get back to people when they call me. I can't always do it. Sometimes there's a misconnection and stuff like that. I do the best I can. I encourage people that if they don't get a call back, it's because of that. It's not because of any lack of desire I have to get back to them, that they try me again. But I generally get back to people. Everybody has my cell number, 781-526-4995. Everybody has it. They can get it. As I said, I leave at 347 Vane Street. I can take a letter. And Steve at stevereardon.com, stevenreardon.com is my website. So contact me any of those ways. I contact City Hall. They are the they know how to get in touch with me, and they'll put you in touch with me. Other than that, obviously, we have a new school and our new stadium, and which are great facilities. We're going to, on October 29th, we're going to be cutting the ribbon, I understand, at the new school. I'm very, very happy and looking forward to that.
The Hill School?
The Hill School, yeah,
That's
the Sergeant
beautiful
James
looking
Hill
school.
School. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful school. It's a beautiful school inside and out. We're going to have the opportunity for people to come before the ceremony and have a tour of the school. So it's going to be great for anybody who hasn't been down there. I know the parents are delighted with the place, as you would expect. I mean, they were coming out of the old McKinley School, a 100-year-old facility, which really was not serving our children in the community. So I have to be very proud of that. I served in the school building committee as well as the stadium building committee. I know how difficult it was to try to work these facilities in very limited parcels of land. So I'm proud of that too. And we've done a number of infrastructure facility improvements in the ward, including streets and sidewalks. We're doing sidewalks now on the Mountain Ave site, finally getting to those sidewalks. And we're going to be doing more. We're going to be doing more. And again, hopefully with this capital improvement plan, we'll be able to go forward.
Right. Councillor Reardon, I want to thank you, sir, for taking the time to come on Revere TV, Veterans and Community Show.
It's my pleasure, Morris, and anytime you
Thank
want
you.
me to come on, let me know.
Right, and God bless you, and I wish you success in your future endeavors.
Thanks
God
very
bless
much.
our troops all over the world,
Absolutely.
and God bless our people of Revere, but most of all, God bless our great country, the United States of America. And folks out there, thank you for listening, and thank you for listening to our Revere TV Channel 8, and hope to see most of you at the Senior Center if you're over 60. We'd love to have you come down. Thank you.